All right, good afternoon. Again, thank you for being here. We began preparations yesterday for our road trip this Saturday up to College Station. Obviously, a team we have tremendous respect for. Their coaching staff, their players, their program, a lot of tradition. Great players, a really explosive football team, and our guys are really excited about the opportunity ahead of us. So, that being said, open to questions.
What type of mentality, approach, culture does a program need to have to go into a road environment like you're going to see Saturday and compete at the high level?
Well, I mean, anytime you go on the road, you've always heard that term business trip, and what does that really mean? Well, best way to put it, I guess, is that, you work on toughness and discipline and resiliency and execution and leadership throughout the course of winter, right? Fourth quarter program, springtime, the summer, fall camp, and everything else. And you've got to make those things real because that's what you have to pack in your bags before you take a trip to a place to play, an excellent football team like Texas A&M. So the mentality is that of a business trip, understanding the task at hand and understanding what we must do to give ourselves our best chance on every single play.
Do you feel like you're going to learn a lot about your team in that regard this week? Because obviously it's something you haven't experienced yet with this team.
I think every day is a learning experience with our guys because every single day for us is new. So I think we'll learn as much this week as we have the past week and the week before that.
Coach, after the swing game, you talked about leaving some meat on the bone on offense. Did you feel like that was the case, or what was progress like in the second game?
Well, I thought we started off sluggish, like we mentioned before, and then towards the end of the first half, I believe 5 of our last 6 drives we scored. I know, albeit 2 of them were field goals, then we had 1 punt. We came up short on a couple of drives that were self-inflicted situations and circumstances, where we had a penalty that we could have avoided. We could have called it a little bit better. I could have helped out a little bit better. So there's some things that were strong in a progress type of way, but in other things that we felt that, hey, it's just not good enough. But I tell the players and the staff all the time, it's you don't let a win feel like a loss. You get what you did well. You get better at it. You get the things you don't do so well at, and you improve them. If it's not good enough, if you ever lose a game, it shouldn't be good enough. Or if it's not good enough when you do lose a game, it shouldn't be good enough, just because you got the win. You've got to look at those errors, those issues, and you've got to correct them. And so that's what we've been doing, building off of that. Yesterday was a big technical and fundamental day for us in all phases, so we feel we made some progress.
Mario, after you spoke on Saturday, you kind of came out and talked to us and kind of, you took responsibility and said, if I play like this again, we're going to lose. I mean, what does it say about him that he takes that responsibility and kind of takes that on himself?
It's great to take ownership as opposed to taking blame, because this thing all works together. I mean, you got to be in sync. The passing game is about precision. It's about timing, right? To be accurate, all the parts got to be in sync. And sometimes, you manufacture some plays and you extend some plays and whatnot, but that's the kind of guy he is. He's always going to want to take, responsibility for everything. But I think as a program, we always take responsibility of it together. And again, always building off the stuff that we can to continue moving forward, because that's the key for us, is continued improvement.
Mario, I know you talked about physicality and all that. I'm just curious, you played 2 games. I know teams always want to develop, whatever you want to say it is, a personality or whatever they can play their hat on. Do you have a sense for an identity of this team yet on offense and defense? Like, you've seen enough to say, okay, this is what we are on offense, this is what we are on defense at this point for 2?
I don't think you proclaim your identity. I don't think you go out and you say I'm this or I'm that. I think you go out and you play it, and you show it with what you do on the field. Your film is your resume, right? It's not your tweet or your T-shirt. So I think in the 2 games that we have played, there are certainly on both sides of the ball up front that we're showing progress. We're working our way towards being a more physical team. We're starting to use our hands better. We're coming out of our hips better. I say that like a broken record because that's part of it. You got to come off the ball. You got to strike people. And there are really good moments of execution, other ones that are close and other ones that are not so close. And so we tend on, when we come together on Sunday, we don't shine a positive light on stuff. That's not real. You shine a realistic just light and take a realistic snapshot of what you are. And we've progressed a lot since the springtime, you know, when we first got together, and we feel that there's a lot to be improved upon, a lot of things that are right there in front of us that we need to work into reality, and not so much just hope and wish that it comes out that way. And it starts with the preparation. And I'm talking about every scout team card. You know, I'm talking about if they're running a zone pressure and that punch contained guy is really wide and works right to the shoulder of the tackle and then pops out, it's got to show up like that on the card, and our players have got to see it. And that's on every coach, every analyst, every GA in the building. You know, it's no different than a prize fighter, you know, training for the big heavyweight fight, right? If he's training against competition that's not pushing him, he's probably going to have a rough day in the ring, right? Same thing for football. So we've got to continue to elevate the standards of every part of our program, and that's the exciting part for us. You know, our players like that, our staff really likes that. So it's been a good start to the week.
Coach, just big picture-wise, you know, what's the kind of opportunity big game like this provides just from a recruiting perspective? I mean, obviously, you guys are on a big stage and, you know, big atmosphere and big kind of fun. Just from a recruiting perspective, just the opportunity that this
Sure.
kind of creates.
Sure, I think everybody wants to, you know, watch teams that are playing on big stages and see what type of progress teams have made. So, yeah, I think anytime you get an opportunity to play a great team like this on a national stage, of course, there are a lot of eyeballs on you, you know, and certainly, you know, recruiting is affected by a number of different things, but progress and performance, right, increased, you know, success rates are typically one of the more critical factors in the recruiting cycle.
Well, I want to ask you about a key message audience, key player for you guys.
Yep.
He was at practice yesterday, and kind of what's his status going this week?
He did. He practiced about half the time. I think he'll be a full-speed player by tomorrow. It's nothing major. It's something that's more nagging, and that should be cleaned out, wiped out by tomorrow, Wednesday. Tomorrow or Wednesday, I should say. So we feel good that he'll be a full-speed player on Saturday.
And Williams, I didn't play on defense. I don't know if special teams on Saturday. Just curious. I know you guys obviously have rotations, competition. Just curious where he is right now on the team in terms of his role.
Well, Avante didn't play as much on Saturday. That's obvious. And I think, look, Avante's he's a good dude. He really is. Known him for a long, long time. Recruited him at the other place. And I think, you know, the obvious thing is everybody, well, the social media, this and that. It's like, look, I met with Avante, and one thing we're not going to do is we're always going to be straightforward and blunt and honest. We're not going to create drama or narratives. That just ain't it. We're not going to have that here. He's a good young man, and we got to get to work and continue to get better and better. And he wants to be good. He's got a really, really bright future. But we're going to choose not to create narratives and drama out there in our program.
Mario, excuse me. And this is about Avante, and also I want to ask you about James Williams. You have so many good, talented safeties. You talk a lot about not just being a football coach of X's and O's, but of helping these young men grow up. How do you deal with a player who might be frustrated with lack of playing time? Is that a common occurrence as a head coach?
How do we deal with it?
Yeah.
With honesty and transparency. There's no other way to deal with it. We don't know of any other way. Same thing, there's no drama or narrative that come with the processes of growth and development as a student athlete, football player, right? Certain people hit their stride at certain times. It's unpredictable. It's probably one of the most imperfect sciences there is in the world. When's a guy going to peak? When's a guy going to hit his stride and be a great player and a great contributor? You're talking about guys that are all contributing and doing a lot of good things. Sometimes some guys are a little bit ahead of others. And sometimes, you know, there's some ground to be gained, and some guys are making it up fast, and others are not. Honesty and transparency. No nonsense and no BS.
Can you say something also about James Williams and Cam, and also I want to ask about outlays, just each one how they're doing?
They're all doing really well. Obviously, James played at an extremely high level, absolute stud this past game. and Cam continues to play really well, and Al is also playing really well. So we feel like we're developing really well there, and that we have a lot of guys that can play a lot of different positions, and we expect them to play at a high level. And just as importantly, we expect a strong competitive response from our guys. Does that make sense? What I mean by that is when guys are competing, instead of taking a turn where maybe a guy may choose to pout or to create an attitude or to create, that's not it. It's not for this program. Competitive responses, when guys see competition, the whole purpose and intent of competition is to make everyone aware that nothing but their very best is going to be good enough. So that's what we mean by that.
Mark, what did you take away from what App State was able to do to Texas A&M? And when you've been on that side, when you expect to win a game and you lose, what do you expect out of what A&M's going to return with this week?
App State played a really good game, and that was a really hard-fought game. Both teams made some incredible plays, you know. And the second part of the question, I'm sorry?
When you're expecting to win a game
Uh-huh.
and you lose one, what do you come back with? The fire that the team comes back with after that?
What do you come back with?
You tell a lot from a team how they respond to the loss. So when you've been on the other side of that,
Right.
big loss, and you probably figure your team should win. What kind of response do you expect?
What kind of response? I'm not sure what the question is or what you're getting at, but I would say that anytime a team does not, achieve their 1-0 goal, that they're going to go right back to the facts, and go back to process, because, just trying to analyze the results is not going to do much. The things that led to not getting the ultimate goal is going to be analyzed to the extreme to make sure that everything is done so that it doesn't happen again.
Watching film from Saturday, what are some of the areas across the offensive line that you would like to see improvement from moving forward?
Sure. Well, we had a couple of lapses mentally where it's almost like you saw a ghost. You thought that a stunt was going to carry its way out an extra gap over, and a guy came loose, and that happened a couple of times. There were some really good moments of physicality, and guys they played hard, and we had a couple of miscommunications as well. But I mean, that's a high confidence group that has played really well, and Saturday was obviously not our best performance. But those are the things that stand out. I don't think it was a matter of trying not to prepare. I mean, guys really tried hard and worked that preparation, and I thought the intent and focus was there, but we didn't execute, which when I say execute, I want to make clear that execution falls on the entire program. That means we didn't, teach it well enough. That means we didn't show them a good enough look on the scout team when we were out there practicing for the opponent. We weren't descriptive enough or detailed enough in that particular situation on that particular play, because what we practice is what we saw. So obviously we've just got to do a better job in those things. And at the same time, be very truthful in saying, hey, at the end of the first half, we're able to take the ball and score 5 of the next 6 possessions. And so we have the ability to, when momentum is something that's not in our favor, that we can reestablish that and gain that.
And then a few more questions. And then Rashard Smith, use some of the slot, use the run game. How do you expect his role or his creative role to really expand as the season progresses?
The better he gets, the more he'll play. It's no different than any other player on the football team. If a guy continues to show that he could help us win games, it's the way it is. I mean, there is the business side of football is something that is not talked about enough in college football, but performance is everything. There is no discrimination in playing time, right? The guys that prove it play. The guys that, let's just say game day is not an experiment. It's not a let's see if a guy can do it. It's guys that have stood the test of time through practices and shown that they could help us.
The young guy that really Curtis, you guys first started, you heard how great he was in camp, and he was had a couple plays.
Yeah.
How do you kind of
Technique, man. Technique, and that's what you want to show up in a game, obviously, right? You want to be able to do this. The fundamentals of football, they haven't changed, right? You bend at the knees, right? You play low to high, you play with your hands inside. And in a critical moment, it just, boom, had a lapse and technique got away. So we've got to get, Malik to play to the best of his ability. See a little to be able to see a lot. Those eyes wandered a little bit. you saw a great effort, try to come back and, get in there and make a tackle or make it close enough to make a play or whatnot. And there's a lot of bright spots with him in camp to make us feel confident he's going to be a good player. We've got to continue working with him on technique and keep trusting the process and get him right.
Coach, what do you think of the Texas A&M's offense, the challenges that those skill guys possess, even though they have a struggling game?
They have the most, or at least as explosive as anybody else in the country. If you look at their track times, I mean, those are legit times, 10-1, 10-6, 10-5. And these aren't, some guys are smaller slot guys, but there's big guys. They've got big speed all over the place. They're extremely physical and big up front and athletic. So they can knock you back and cover you up. Their tight ends are very versatile, as blockers, as receivers. They can stretch the field. They can knock you back. Just a very, very dangerous offense, and certainly we're very well aware of their capabilities.
All right, then the noise, thank you. The noise factor, pilot field under 2,000. Is that something that especially the younger players just have to live through to speak to do it right and not make mistakes and stuff? I know you practice with noise, but it's not the same.
Sure, I think it's more. I think it's 115,000, if I'm not mistaken. It's up there. It's well over 100. But if you've never seen it before, never practiced in noise before, and if you let it get in your head, it'll affect you tremendously. And if you practice in it, if you really stress the importance of how you signal, how you communicate without having to verbally correct, because you're not going to be able to do that, right? We understand that, they create an unbelievable atmosphere, which is exciting for our guys, quite honestly. It's exciting. I mean, come on, when you're growing up and you play college football, you want to play in games like this. You recognize their tradition, you respect it, them and their program, and you can't wait for the opportunity, to go find out, where we are as a program. So, but we're trained in it, obviously. I'm sure the residents of Coral Gables are really happy about, the speakers blasting all the time. But it's part of our process, so we'll continue working at it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Be safe. Go Canes.
We've seen, oh wait, I'll make sure.
Sorry.
As far as progress from your running backs, especially getting Jalen into a game.
Well, I think, we've still got to continue to develop there. I think last week kind of was a lot of rust, kind of in that room, obviously, kind of getting some guys back healthy. But it's got to start with practicing. We got to have guys practicing every day. Got to have everybody competing. And that's one of the things that, based on our depth, we haven't had, over the last, few weeks. So getting him back was obviously encouragement, but, it'll be better now as we get him back into acclimating into practice, getting them full speed reps all the time.
Yeah, the flea flicker worked out quite well. What was going through your mind when you decided this is the time to dial up this play?
It's one of your calls in the game, and obviously it's one that you prepare for, one you practice, go through execution-wise, and, it's always your gut feeling when to call it, where to call it, situations in the game, and it came down to the players executing at a very high level.
Josh, Tyler was pretty hard on himself after the last performance. I'm curious what you thought of his plays, and then also just the receivers. Are they getting open enough for your liking, creating enough separation?
Yeah, well, first off, we were very sluggish on offense. I don't think we can hide from that. We never want the quarterback to get hit 4 times. And so it wasn't anything, and credit to Southern Miss by any means, but it was all things we can control. We just had some mental collapses where we just kind of didn't touch a man or didn't block a man that was right in front of us. And it was nothing that our guys hadn't prepared for. And it was just one of those moments in games where, we just had some kind of brain freeze. So we obviously corrected that and look forward to correcting that moving forward. But Tyler's always going to be critical of himself. That's what you want out of your greatest leaders. You want them to, point the thumb at themselves before they point the finger at anyone else. And so he takes on tremendous responsibility trying to be being our quarterback, and we accept him for it. The receivers have done a great job. They've done a great job so far, but, I'm not ready to pat the backs of anyone. We've got to continue to develop ourselves, continue to take the next step. And one of the things that I thought would be our biggest challenge going into week 2 is how do you handle how do you handle success? And so for us to be the team that we need to be a mature football team that understands how to handle success, also has to understand how to overcome adversity as well.
Josh, tight ends only had one catch for 5 yards on Saturday. I guess they were needing more blocking, some blitzing, chance luck of the draw or unluck of the draw. Why was that? Why did you see that?
A lot of times that just goes off game flow. It's not anything, intentional. It's kind of predicated based on what the defense is doing coverage-wise or where the ball is going. The biggest thing we always focus on is completion percentage. At the end of the day, as long as we're completing at a high number and we're keeping the quarterback clean, we really don't get caught up too much in who's touching the ball. Obviously, the ball is spread around quite a bit, but sometimes that's going to go to our X, sometimes that's going to go to our Z, sometimes it's going to go to our Y. But we got to make the most of the opportunities that are presented to us. And so it was one of those days, unfortunately, for the tight ends. But obviously, their role didn't decrease by any means. I don't think you can judge one position based on performance or outcome of catches. And so they're a critical part of our offense, an important piece to what we do. And they'll find opportunities in the pass game as we move forward.
App State played kind of such an interesting offensive game where it looked like kind of like play, where it's like perfect and situational football. Are there takeaways you can get from watching how they pulled off that upset on Saturday?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stands out when you look at that game, right, was time of possession. I want to say Texas A&M only had the ball for about 35 or 40 offensive snaps, and when you're able to control the ball like that, that's a critical factor in games. A lot of people don't look at that statistic. Is the number of how many reps you're taking, how much you're controlling the game and controlling the flow of the game through time of possession. I think that's very important, especially when you're dealing with any type of explosive team. And obviously, Texas A&M is a team that's very explosive. They got a ton of speed on their team, ton of speed on their defense. You've got to make sure that you're holding on to the ball and not giving it away, and being able to, a lot of people don't get excited about 3 or 4 yard gains, but those 3 or 4 yard gains win games. And you have to understand that within the game, and I think that's where Appalachian State did a great job of on last Saturday.
How significant was it to have to go through the process of making halftime adjustments and then responding?
Well, the biggest halftime adjustments that we made on Saturday was not, as I told our guys, is not killing ourselves, from that standpoint. We just, the breakdowns, the lack of urgency, the lack of execution, those were all things that we could correct and control. And so got them in at halftime, and the biggest thing I told them is calm down. Just calm down. We've got to take a deep breath, calm down. For whatever reason it was, we came out just a mess, and it was evident in our performance early on. And so once they rallied themselves, understood there was nothing that we haven't seen, nothing that they haven't done, then obviously they started having success. And so the biggest thing is controlling the controllables, playing as clean and as good as we can. And Saturday, the slow start started just the fundamentals. Increase intention to detail in the fundamentals and the daily execution of things that we do all the time. And that's something we've got to continue to strive to work towards.
Josh, how do you prepare guys? I asked Mario this for the noise factor, because the speakers at Greentree don't do it.
Well, it's definitely a factor in the game. You're going into a very hostile environment and one of the most largest crowds in college football. You're talking about 100,000+ for every game for them, and so that's going to be different. It's going to be different on a lot of aspects for our team. But the biggest thing that we've got to do is we've got to embrace the environment. We've got to embrace playing in front of a packed out crowd. On the road, SEC environment. We will bring in the noise in practice, and it gets pretty loud with the speakers. Trust me, there's times where I can't talk to the other players on the field because the speakers are so loud. But we've got to handle that. We've got to do a great job with our verbal and visual communication, whether that's signals, communication on the field, and everything. And so everyone's got to take an enhanced effort at preparation this week and going through our daily process to help us lead to win this game. Nez did a good job. He's obviously as a freshman, he's taking on an increased role. Obviously he didn't have a catch, unfortunate for him. I know he probably wished he had one in that category, but Nez has done a great job, learning our system, being coachable and making contributions. And when you've got guys like that, you want to try to create as many roles as you can for as many players on your team. And so, he was used on Saturday. And, what that looks like moving forward, who knows? But he's been such a valuable player for us, not only as an offensive lineman, but whatever we ask him to do.
How important is it to have Jacoby George back against Texas A&M, and what do you expect his role to be in season debut?
Well, I think Jacoby's got to create his role. I think obviously it's good to have him back, but he's got to create his role. I think when you look at the receiver room, some guys have created roles. Whether that's Keyshawn Smith, Mike Redding is playing at his best football right now. Obviously, Xavier Restrepo is Xavier Restrepo. He's so consistent in his preparation and his performance. Success just speaks from how he practiced. I think Brashad Smith has kind of taken the next step, even though Brashad can continue to learn from Xavier. And I think so many guys right now are clawing at opportunities in that receiver room. And so we've got to continue to push the competition level up there. And obviously getting Jacoby back makes us a little bit more deeper from that standpoint. But I'm excited this week to see him go out and compete and acclimate himself back into that room.
What's your assessment to this point, situational football, third down, red zone, how do you guys do it?
Well, through 2 games, I think we're doing pretty decent. First game was 100% on third down, and this past game, I want to say we were just over 50% of third down, and then obviously the red zone, getting scores in the red zone. Now, obviously the biggest statistic that you always focus on in red zone, one, obviously people talk about red zone scoring percentage, but for us, we want to focus on touchdown percentage. Really, scoring touchdowns and not having to kick as many field goals. I think we kicked 3 field goals on Saturday. Unfortunately, we want those back. But things that happened in the red zone that took us back out of position to get those touchdowns were penalties. Things that we can control. We had 1 touchdown come off the board of a long gain, another unsportsmanlike penalty or unnecessary roughness that took us out of scoring range, and then ultimately decided with a field goal. And so we just got to play clean football. When we get into the red zone, obviously the stakes become higher, and our focus has got to increase as well. And so we've got to play clean football in the red zone. We've got to be able to score touchdowns. Yeah, I think it's been a very detailed plan for Zion, just kind of acclimating him back to the offense. And then, he's another guy that's kind of like Jalen Knighton is, I think a lot of people are being able to see them make contributions in games, but the thing we're excited about is getting them to become full-time practice players. And so, even though, some guys have been out there getting game reps, they haven't been available to practice at all times. And so for us, it's about getting as many guys out to practice every rep throughout practice. That way we can maintain consistency as an offense and as a unit, having that type of communication up front in the front 5, having that consistency in the play. And so, but we also have some guys that have created roles for themselves on the offensive line as well. And so it's a unique position that we're in. As we're gaining depth, we're also creating challenges, for everyone to continue to play and perform at a very high level because we have some depth there and some competition brewing.
Coach, obviously, don't do with game plan or anything, but what are some things that you've seen from A&M's defense on film that might make them vulnerable?
Well, first, I'll acknowledge they're very talented. They're fast. They're athletic. They've got a ton of depth on the defensive line. They create issues to people at the size and talent that they have. The thing as far as take advantage of, before you can take advantage of anyone, you've got to focus on being precise in what you do and how you do it. And the thing that we've got to do this week is we got to focus on our fundamentals. I don't care who we're playing. I don't care who we play. If we don't perform at a high level fundamentally, it's going to be hard to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish. When we do play at a level where we focus on those things, we can accomplish some pretty unique things. And so it's got to go back to us. I wasn't, if you can tell, I wasn't pleased with the way we started out last game from a fundamental standpoint. And that's what we're excited. Our kids knew it, although every win is a great win. Our kids are eager to come back and get to work tomorrow. They're eager, obviously, to play on the road, but they're more importantly, they're eager to correct the mistakes that they've made and continue to enhance themselves moving forward.
Anything else for Coach Gattis?
Coach, how do you manage not revealing too much on a week-to-week basis, and do you work on certain, or do you kind of create certain plays for certain situations?
Yeah, every game plan is different. There's different things different decisions that go into creating a game plan. Obviously, personnel, your personnel matchups, what defensively they may present challenges or opportunities, and then you grow it off of based on what your players do best. And so, the biggest thing for us offensively is to allow ourselves to put our players in the best position to succeed, and that's everyone included. And so, when we're developing that game plan, we're taking in all attributes of what we know our players do best, what we see our players do best on a day-to-day basis, and not, we don't get caught up in the outside. We should look like this or look like that. We do what's best to win games, and ultimately, once you win games, then you ultimately win championships. And so, first and foremost is just taking a 1-0 approach each and every week. Whatever it takes to win that game, that's the approach we'll take offensively. Awesome. Thank you.
That's all I'm going to do. Good afternoon, guys and ladies. All right. Everybody doing well? Yeah. Good. Okay. Go ahead. We get started. Well, I think we took another step in the right direction. We cleaned up some things from week one, a lot of things, to be quite frank with you, and then we came out and like Coach had said earlier, and I'm sure he talked about this, is we started a little bit slow, and then got on track and really got in sync, and really played some really sound football, and they knew their job, they did their job, and so that's producing some things in the first two games, and we're escalating. As we go through the season, we got to improve every week. But at this point in time, I mean, we are where we are, and we've taken some steps in the run defense, and playing solid and fitting the runs good. We've been in good in the red zone. We obviously, I think we're getting pressure on the quarterback. We're getting good pass rush. We're tackling. Tackling has really improved. Our effort to the football has really improved. We're playing really good on first down defense. In terms of that. So I mean, all those things, that's history, but it is a measuring stick. I mean, we have to have measuring sticks, and we got to sustain it. We got to do it tomorrow in practice, and so that's we're headed in the right direction. I think probably the thing that is not, it's not gosh awful, but we're leaving a lot on the table on third down. We're just average there right now, and those things are all correctable, contained here and there. The right fit or the right peel on a six-man pressure, those kind of things have cost us a little bit, and we've got to get that corrected real quick. Well, there's two kinds of adjustments. There's player adjustments, and then there's schematic adjustments. And obviously in any game there's schematic adjustments where you will, kind of see what you're going to do, because there were some challenges there. All of last year they had a quarterback. He got hurt. They went to what they call their super back, and they played the last three games in that totally, exclusively. Then this game, the game before us, the quarterback gets hurt in the first half. We kind of didn't think that he would be back, so everything led to the super back because it was the second half exclusively, totally. So we had to practice against it because that's what's on tape. We got none of that, zero. So there were some, our game plan was 50-50, and so we had to take that 50% we were not seeing, and then we had to pull out a few calls out of our pockets and make some adjustments there. But I think the players got in sync too. So it's player adjustments and schematic adjustments.
With Texas A&M quarterback situation, their starter didn't play well, of course, but they have other options they could potentially go to. Are you preparing for multiple quarterbacks this week, and how different maybe are those guys?
Well, Coach Fisher, he's a bright football coach, and their offense is their offense. I mean, that's what it's always been, and his packages are his packages. So in terms of what routes they're running in third down, what routes they're running in second long, what runs they're running, what formations you're getting, you'll always get a little nuance here and there with him, different formations, different motions that he hadn't shown for a while or he pulls out. But schematically, it's pretty much the same. So really, when you start talking about two different quarterbacks, one's a little bit more pro style, and the other one's a little, he can throw it really good, but he runs really well. So there's that nuance, but it's not a huge difference in schematics, which that's the big thing.
How do you assess your secondary from Saturday? It seemed like they tested you guys on a couple jump balls there.
Yeah, well, it's football, so when you can't run the ball, you're gonna get a lot of shots, and we had some shots. We had a PI on one. One was a great throw and catch. Tip your hat and play the next play, and then there's a couple things we can still clean up there and tighten up the coverage. But they bought in. They're playing good technique. We just got to keep progressing. And pass coverage is not just. I mean, it's not supposed to be like one-on-one on air. I mean, we got to get to the quarterback. You got to affect the quarterback.
App State played kind of such an interesting game against A&M. I think A&M only ran 38 offensive plays. Is there a lot you can take away from how they pulled off that upset Saturday?
Well, schematically, in fact, Dale Jones, the defense coordinator, I was actually on the staff when he was a player, so I know him really well. Schematically, we're a little bit different, but there's some same as there. We always take things from any games that we watch, things that people do good. I mean, as you know, football coaches, nobody's really inventing anything. You're stealing things. And so, but in terms of the way the game unfolded, I mean, that game unfolded in a unique, different way that really 38 plays. App State could play Texas A&M 9 more times, and it probably wouldn't be 38 plays. So you can't take a lot from that. And a lot of that was because I think they snapped the ball. I watched the TV copy as well as the other one, I think 4 or 5 times already. So, they're snapping the ball really, really with the shot clock down. And all of us in this room that have watched football the last 5 or 6 years, they're snapping it at about 23, 22, 21 seconds, and they were snapping it 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the way it used to be when I first started coaching, so I'd seen it before. But you just don't see that much anymore.
You talked about using 3 safeties during this season. Obviously, James Williams and Cam Kitchens have certainly shined, but Devontae Williams hasn't seen the field much. Are you still looking to use the 3 safeties?
We did. We've used it in every game. Al Blades. So every game we've had 3 safeties out there at the same time.
What about Devontae Williams?
He's doing well. He's doing well, coming along. It's all a process for all of us, and I mean he's doing very well. I think he will be just fine.
I asked Mario this, is part of, and you've been a coach a long time, part of being a coach is not just X's and O's, right? It's also the mental state of your players, the emotional state,
The academic state, the social state, the parental state. I get it.
Players being frustrated, maybe they're not getting as much playing time as they think they deserve. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, you do it just like you would with your own son. I had a son play football, and you're gonna care about them. You're gonna nurture them. You're gonna help them through adversity if they're having adversity with it. Some do, some don't. We're always interacting with them like that. It's a process. I've had guys that didn't get their pants dirty the first 5 games of the year and started the next 6 games. I've had guys that didn't get their pants dirty the first 3 years they were on campus and played 5 years in the NFL. It's different for everybody. And so it's just like you would with your own child or your own son, your own daughter. you stay on top of it, you work through it, you help people learn how to fight through whatever they're having, whatever issues they're having, whatever struggles they're having, and help them get to where they need to get. That's coaching. And so that's not a problem. It's just like raising your own.
Coach, also, I'm wondering, because the participation chart for UM said that Amate participated in this last game, but I know Focus or whatever said.
Special teams. Special teams. Yeah, he was on special teams.
And the first game for defense, too, right?
Yes, yes. Yep.
I want to ask you just about the linebacker today. You mentioned the tackling overall was better this game. I'm just curious about specifically the linebackers.
Well, they're improving every day, and they've accepted the challenge. And, you know, we've got 2 young ones coming along, too. And so that's a positive. That's a real positive. You know, Chase and Wesley are coming along, and so we had the other 4 that you've seen out there and rotated. Their production has gone up. Their ability to quarterback the defense, make checks, make adjustments on the field. They've really made a lot of progress in the last 2 weeks on that.
Coach, Corey Flagg has led the defense in tackles for the first 2 games. What do you really like from him so far?
The fact that he's really immersed himself in learning football, but also studying his opponents. And so, you know, we're not out there. There comes a point in time when you got to hand them the keys to the car and let them drive, and hope they don't run into something, that they're safe. And so then they become more comfortable with it, and then they become a coach on the field. And so that's he's headed in that direction. He's really done a nice job with it.
And then Nigel Kelly has first sack of his career on Saturday. How do you see his role progressing as the season?
Just like you saw, more sacks. He's a natural pass rusher. He does that very well, but he plays the run really well too. I mean, he's got that flexibility, change of direction, speed, and right now he's young, but he does know there's only one football out there, and he knows to chase it, and he can get there in a hurry.
Hey, Kevin, we talked about 38 plays. That's like a half a game of a typical game. And their first game was against Sam Houston. You know, I haven't watched Sam Houston, so I don't want to
Right.
too much on their ability level. But how hard is this making your preparation with such a small, significant sample size of their offense with this set of personnel? They're playing a lot of freshmen.
Right. Not as hard as it was the first 2 weeks. First 2 weeks, a lot of transfers out, a lot of transfers in, new offensive coordinator that hadn't called it in 3 years. Okay, so that was really difficult. Then this past week, okay, quarterback out, they'd been Wildcat last year, so we talked about last of that being 2 or 3 different offenses in one. Coach Fisher is Coach Fisher, and you can go back and watch Florida State tape, and you can watch last year's tape, and you're going to see the basics the same. And so the body of work, who they played, it's still his offense. So it's obviously the challenge is great. They're very talented, very, very talented. It's at home in College Station. So, you know, it's a different place to play. I've been there several times. It's different. So all of those things that really shouldn't matter, you have to factor in and prepare for. Crowd noise, all those kind of things. But what he does and how he does it, the base rudiments of it, are not going to change.
We'll do a few more for Coach.
Coach, how do you think your bigger cornerbacks, Ivy and Stevenson, have done against the smaller receivers so far, and then the challenges ahead against the team?
Well, there were some. Number one was a large receiver. Now, he was a large receiver that could run last week, and so, but they've progressed very nicely. I mean, it's a process. That's a hard job. When you're out there on the island by yourself. I mean, my mom watched football all her life. My dad was a coach. You know, she's got 3 sons that have coached at some point in time in their life. You know, if the A gap is open and the tackle didn't get in it, nobody in the stands is going to know. But everybody watching TV and everybody in the stands is going to know if that guy didn't cover that guy because he's out there on the island by himself. It's a hard job. And so it's all about technique. It's all about confidence. And they have progressed very nicely in their confidence. It's a new scheme. And so, you know, we just got to keep getting better every day.
And what have you seen from pass rushers? I think they're rated like 4th in the country on Pro Football Focus right now.
Who's that?
The pass rushers. What have you seen them do
Well, last week, I mean, even on the PI we had and the deep ball that was caught down the sideline over on their sideline, I mean, he took. I mean, there was some heat on him, real heat. And so what we're doing is we're really generating a substantial pass rush with 4 guys, which that's huge. You know, that helps the DBs. It also helps the fact that you don't have to pressure as much. You know, I like to pressure, but why pressure if you're getting there with 4 guys? You know, you got more guys to cover then. So it's been, we're not there yet, but we're making progress.
You've been a part of good defenses. Have you coached a defense that is this deep at D tackle? Like on Saturday, you had
I have.
a lot of guys making
I
plays.
have at 3 different stops. Yep. But part of that's because where I've been.
How important is that group going to be this week against?
It will be important every week. You know, the game goes really, really fast. They're 300, 310, 290, 280 pounds. I don't know if you noticed, but it's a little warm out there. When you can keep those guys fresh, it's huge. When you only got 4 of them or 5 of them, it shows up in the second half. If you can't, you know, if it's a very hot day and they're throwing the ball a lot, it can wear them out. Pass rush takes a lot of energy, and so it's key. Then the other thing about it is fortunately all these guys, we talk about the pass rush, but these guys are you know, they've made a big jump in our scheme. I can't talk about the past, don't know, but in our scheme they've made a big jump in playing run blocks and fitting their gaps and holding their point in run blocks, and so you know that they're the key to the whole thing. Starts up front, ends up front.
Last question for Coach. Have you been to that stadium? I know it affects the offense more than the defense, but have you been to Kyle Field?
Let's see. I think about 7, 8, 9 times. Yeah.
Really, your experience there? I mean, now it's really, really large.
Yeah, well, I've been there since they did the expansions a couple of times. Well, I can tell you this. It gets so loud, and I've been there on the sideline with headsets that you can't hear in the headsets. I've been in the box there when it was so loud you couldn't hear on the headsets.
So how do you deal with it?
The best way you can. Scream a lot in the headsets.
Thanks, Coach Steele.
Thank y'all.